of them do have smaller children, but those children obviously grow up, and if people really like the town, they're going to stick around. That, the projections that Dr. Choate was talking about in terms of 100 students per year, how far out is that projection? And how does that impact, you know, what the current plan is for the middle and the high school? Because I also have a concern about the fact that, you know, these kids are going to need increased technology because the speed of technology is faster than any of us think. And, you know, I'm concerned that as this real large influx of elementary school kids grows older, that the needs of the middle school and the high school are not going to be able to be projected quickly enough so that we can be able to cover that.
The totals, we would project for a 10-year enrollment that North Reading's kindergarten through grade 12 would probably top out at around 2,800 students totally. So we're not all that far in a way, probably about 300 students from that number. The substantial bulk in the next 5 years will be at the secondary level. This school is just at 600 now, so it will probably go up slightly over 100 more students within the next 3 years. The high school will reach that 800 level within 5 years. Again, looking at elementary class sizes or total class sizes of over 200, that's coming here rapidly to the middle school, and so we'll eventually shift them up. There is a drop-off percentage between 8 and 9, and if that changes, that could inflate the high school enrollment as well. As far as technology is concerned, that is a huge concern for the school department. Again, just to repeat, we have invested a lot of money in the infrastructure and technology, but in comparison to other school districts, we continue to lag behind. And I believe we're lagging behind because our rate of growth, student-wise, is higher than other communities, and we've had to divert a larger percentage of any new state aid to just keeping our head above water on the class size issue, particularly at the elementary, and now it's hitting at the secondary level. Not only, so operating expenses, salaries, textbooks, those expenses come first. The technology we have to continually put aside.
But in the course of renovating a building or building a new building, put technology in as part of that process on the reimbursable scale. And that's what we've done at the little school, that's what we're doing at the hood school, that's what we hope to do with the 3 remaining schools through this process.
So that's built, those monies are built into the current plan for the middle and the high school.
Yes.
You projected out how far? About how far is that projected out?
For the building projects?
No. For the middle and high school?
Oh, 10 years.
Gentleman in the rear, sorry.
Tony Ray. I wanted to, I guess, preface my comments first by recognizing the time and effort that the committee has put into this. I know it's not an easy task. I think the operative word, and I think Mr. O'Leary used it at the beginning, was comfort level. And my gut feel is well short of the level needed to get the community support for these projects individually or collectively. It's a very ambitious program. And I guess for people like myself that are into detail, I guess how do we increase that comfort level? Well, I certainly would have expected, and maybe it's in the works, a comprehensive report which basically compiled all of the information that the various subcommittees have gathered and produced. Because I think we all need to be convinced that how these needs for each of these projects were established. What's the basis of design for that? Are they conservative on the high end or conservative on the low end? Is there room to minimize those projects, or has that already been done? I think we need to understand the alternatives, as several people have pointed out. I know there are alternatives considered and people have talked about them, but I've never seen anyone put them down on paper and how those were evaluated, whether it was just cost factors, whether it was other factors. And I think for the first time we're seeing some financial numbers, but all those numbers are based on a lot of assumptions. And I think we should be presenting a couple of scenarios because all of those assumptions probably won't hold true, whether it's financing costs or the exact costs and start date of a particular project, as Mr. Jervy pointed out. Now, I think for others that may not be into detail, how do you get that comfort level up? I guess one idea is to commission kind of an independent review of this report. Gather some residents, gather some business people, maybe even consider somebody outside of town to look at the detail and say, yes, this makes sense, these needs are real, this is the best way to do it. Otherwise, I think what you're left with is basically a program. We've got 2 projects that already failed at the polls, essentially the same, the police and the new school. We've added several other projects, so now the total cost is 2 to 3 times what those single projects were. That's a big hurdle. That's a big hurdle. And I guess a couple other comments. Personally, I think it's essential that you include operating costs in your alternative analysis. I guess I would have expected that you'd be basing them on a life cycle or net present worth basis. Because those operating costs, I think as somebody over here pointed out, are real, they aren't zero. We're looking at a 25-year period. They will ripple through every department in town, from DPW, which will have to plow the lots, to the grounds people that have to mow the lawn, to repair of roofs, flat or pitched. They're not going to last 25 years. We can look back at other schools and look at the case history. Those costs are real. I think it would be unwise to assign a zero cost to the Murphy School under the present plan. While it may not need anything today, it will need monies down the road. And I think the case to look at is the Damon Tavern. It was left alone for several years. We had to sink a lot of money into it. I would expect that we're going to have to put money into the Murphy School for whatever use it's used for. And I guess the last point, well, there's 2 points. One, somebody talked about enrollments, and I think that's a good question. Like most things, they're cyclic. We saw in the late 80s, early 90s, they dropped, we closed schools. By building all of this new elementary capacity, are we setting ourselves up 10 or 15 years down the road where we're going to shut down one of these schools because we don't have enough elementary school kids? So I would hope that the alternatives that were looked at realistically considered whether or not it would be more appropriate to expand the middle of the high school for that capacity, for that purpose. And then I think finally, 2 people I think mentioned in their presentation that now's the time to act because construction costs are dramatically increasing. You may find some that argue that it's not the right time, that it's the worst time. And if you look back to the early 90s when contractors were hungry, you could get a lot more for your money. Nobody has a crystal ball, but I don't think we should be putting that out there as a reason to act because we don't know which way it's going to go. Thanks.
I'd like to potential address
Sure, if anyone wants to address any, or they want to think about it, I'm not necessarily looking for.
You know, I'd like to address, first of all, as far as the comment that you made, as far as having an outside source come in and evaluate the performance of whatever's being presented here. I'd like to point out, first of all, that the group of people that are here were very diverse in their opinions as to what route we should take, how we should approach it, to what degree are we going to address these concerns. And there was an awful lot of discussion, and some of it heated at times, until we came to a consensus as to what we felt as members of the community, and a good cross-section of the community, in relation to our philosophical beliefs and where we think the town is headed, where we're going, what we anticipate it's going to look like, what we'd like to see retained, what we'd like to see changed, what we determine to be needs, wants, and desires. Part of this proposal, there isn't anybody up here that's going to say, is a total need package. We don't have to move Town Hall back to the center of town. We don't have to put Town Hall into the Batchelder School. Town Hall is operating and functioning well where it's located. But the thing is, there is a certain segment of the community that would like to see our government center, the government operations in the center of the center of the community, and also wanted to retain, we believe, that particular parcel of land which the Batchelder School sits on, and that particular facility in the town's hands, rather than selling it off, go through the rezoning, do whatever's going to be done with it, and take what the heart of our community and what people think of North Reading as being around the common area, and putting it in the hands of a private enterprise or anybody else to do something else with it. So part of what this package is a little bit of the desires rather than the actual needs, but it's also addressing the needs that we have. And in determining that, in relation to that particular facility, that we have a public building that we want to retain under public ownership, that we now then have a need to put it to use, because nobody in the general public, and I don't believe anybody that's going to be going to the polls is going to support any type of a program being put forth without that being addressed, because they don't want to see that building boarded up. They don't want to see what happened to the Damon Tavern and the old library happen again. And there isn't anybody here more committed than these people to see that whatever proposal we're putting forth, there is a plan for these facilities and these buildings. In relation to the Murphy Center itself, if it's vacated, we can substantiate the needs for additional meeting space, recreation space, and cultural space, where that current facility can be utilized almost to a maximum degree from the day we get out of there to we can start right in on it. We have that kind of a need for meeting space and food pantries and everything else where we can put it in that particular space. As far as, not putting any funds up to renovate, we don't see any need for that at this particular point, or even over the next 5 years probably, other than moving a little wall here. It's just general maintenance, upkeep, and minor stuff costs that we factor into our general operating expenses as far as general maintenance and upkeep of the building. Again, we're maintaining the building now. If you have, most of those walls are minor construction 2x4, which can be moved easily, because they were just erected 1988. So most of that stuff it's cosmetic and can be addressed with small dollar amounts, and doesn't require debt exclusion in order to make any changes going forward that we can see for what we see the uses of that building going to be. But as far as going outside, having someone come in and assess the plan, again, the general feeling that I get out in the community is that we've kicked this around an awful long time. I mean, we have a tendency to study things to death around here. We commission studies, we pay good money, taxpayers' money, for outside engineers and architects to come in and give us their best estimate as to what our needs are based upon the services that we provide. We've had those, and we've had them again, and we've had them again, and we've updated them again, and we've updated them again, and every time we do is $25,000, $40,000, $40,000, and then when you go and you get a design plan for a new school for $225,000 to $250,000, and then it's rejected. We're spending an awful lot of money on outside people assisting us.
Yeah,
we need that.
Just clarify my suggestion. It wasn't to have an outside paid review. My suggestion was to look for people in town to review this and give an independent review. I mean, this tax rate increase is